Well, hello and welcome to the Movie Paradise. I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár, and this is Movie Night Tonight. How this works is every week we watch a new movie and we discuss the film in depth. We're currently in the month of October, and this is the first installment in our October month, and October is all horror movies. And the film tonight we're going to be talking about is John Carpenter's The Thing. I'm joined by a great panel here. We have Crystal Gonzalez.
Hello.
Dave Scrivani.
How's it going?
And Nick Girard.
Hi.
So we watched The Thing last night, and we haven't had a chance to really talk about it at all yet, so I just want to go around and everyone individually say real quick what your thoughts are on the film briefly, and how many times you've seen it before. Starting with Crystal.
Okay. Well, I've seen the movie probably about 3 or 4 times. It's probably one of my favorite horror movies.
Way to steal my thunder. It's one of my favorite horror movies too, and I think I've lost track of how many times I've seen it. So, yeah, let's say 6 maybe. Nice even,
6?
Nice even number.
That's a good number right there.
I liked it a lot growing up in high school, and rewatching it made me love it more. Now that I have now that I have like a film background and everything, I just appreciate it a lot more, and I'd say I've probably seen it like 3 times.
So let's just dive right into it. And for people listening, this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. We're talking as if you watched the movie with us last night. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, or you're cautious about spoilers at all, this isn't the thing to listen to. But let's dive right in. And I think the biggest thing that when people think of The Thing, they think of the practical effects. I think that's probably the most famous part of this movie and the most noteworthy. I don't know if noteworthy is the right term, but it's what people associate with this film is the practical effects. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie that has the sheer level of practical effects to the same degree as The Thing does.
Well, that's kind of what happens when you get a studio like Stan Winston to do your practical effects. Like he's done the Alien movies, Predator. I think Jurassic Park, and the Iron Man was the last one he did before Stan Winston died.
Yeah.
But that's just the level of quality you get from a studio like Stan Winston.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's and every time I watch this movie, I'm just always taken aback by how, for 1982, it looks so good. It looks so good, especially when you get into the first real use of the practical effects when you have the dog. And I think, what is it, like the side of its face like splits open?
Oh, yeah.
That,
like a banana.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's creepy.
Yeah.
It's so creepy.
I will say, when I first watched this movie, this had to have been going on 10 years now, because that's when I first got into horror movies, was around 10 years ago. I had to turn the movie off, because that scene was just so disturbing to me. I was just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And I just went upstairs and didn't watch it for like another year afterwards.
It bothered me a lot more this time. Like I don't know what it was. Maybe I had no empathy when I watched it the first time, but this time I was like, it's a dog. It's a dog and it's dying. It's being torn apart.
Yeah.
I don't know how that didn't bother me before, but it bothered me this time.
Yeah, my friend, I showed it to her over the summer, and she requested we skip that scene. So I was, of course, I had to oblige. So, but unfortunately, it's one of the best scenes in the movie. I would say.
Yeah, the effects in the movie are just something that I still love today, even with other 2018 movies or movies that have come before that. It's still one of my favorite.
Yeah, I always believe that some circumstances aside, like maybe the new Planet of the Apes movies, but I feel like in most cases, practical effects are always better than CGI effects. I feel like it feels more real, and when actors are acting alongside practical effects, I feel like you get a more genuine performance out of them because they're actually acting alongside something instead of a green screen or a tennis ball on the end of a rope or on the end of a pole or whatever. I feel like when they're interacting and they're seeing it themselves, because the actors in this movie, they're seeing all those effects as they're happening. And so their horror of when they witness this, that horror that we feel as the audience, they're feeling in that moment, and you get such a more genuine performance out of them for it. So that's something I definitely really appreciate about this movie, is the degree of the practical effects.
That's actually a really good point you made. I didn't even think about that. Like, on set, like, reacting to the real life models rather than like pretending to be scared. I think like I always think this is a 70s film, but it's actually 80s, like 82. And I think the reason why it stands out, and it is such a good film that still stands out today, is because it's super real, you know? Like, everything's pretty realistic. There's nothing cheesy at all about the film. Although you could argue Kurt Russell's manliness is a stereotypical 80s, like, macho guy. Like, that's a little cheesy, I guess, in some degree, but honestly, I didn't even think of it. Like, I'm only thinking of it now looking back at it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is just, like, very well crafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, when arguing about cheesy, you could say, like, dialogue, but effects-wise, nothing is cheesy about it.
Oh, no.
No, and I think practical effects stand the test of time, where CGI is always aging. Like, you watch... You watch movies from early 2000s, late 90s with CGI, and it's hard to watch it now. I'm thinking specifically like Scorpion King or the Mummy movie with Dwayne Johnson as the Scorpion King. Like that shit's awful. But
after we watched the thing last night, I went back to my dorm and watched the Scooby-Doo live action movie. I'm like, yikes! Did not age well.
Yeah.
No, it did not.
But practical effects don't really age. I mean, I think maybe if they did some of these practical effects, they'd find better ways to do them now. But they don't age nearly to the same degree as
well, that being said, I not to derail too much, but you brought up Planet of the Apes. I'm curious, how will a movie like Dawn and War of the Planet of the Apes, how is that going to look like 30 years down the line?
I was just thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about that because they're breathtaking now for us, but in 10, 20 years, how are they going to look?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like people in their own time period will look at CGI and they'll always think it's like, oh, this looks really good for now, and then a couple of years after, like, oh, that wasn't that good. So, but the practical effects, I don't think age in that degree. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, I think maybe they could have found better ways to do it now if the movie was being made today, but you don't lose anything from this movie being from 1982 when you watch the practical effects today. There's not really much lost.
It's also kind of like, it's an art piece in a sense, you know, like that's that person's adaptation, but like if someone were to make all the practical effects for the thing now, they would look completely different. Yeah. And they would be made with different materials, because obviously, like technology, materials can advance based on like new discoveries and stuff, so.
Yeah, I think, and moving on from the practical effects, one of the elements I really like about this movie is the sense of paranoia and people turning on each other. And I think that's I really like that element of the film. Because you have these close quarters, you have all these people within this one bunker, and they're starting to turn on each other and they're starting to doubt each other. And I don't think the movie necessarily goes out of its way to make you feel that plight each individual character feels. Like, I don't think you as the audience necessarily feel for every single character as they're trying to figure out what's going on, but you feel the overall situation. I think you feel the gravity of that overall situation.
Yeah, 100%. That is what makes the movie for me. You know, you compare it to a movie like A Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, you know exactly what's happening there. But with The Thing, you are just as lost as any of the characters in the movie. Exactly. And that is ridiculously terrifying to me. Yeah. And I think personally, I've never really seen movies any recent movies do that, like, since this. And hopefully that'll change. I don't know if it will.
Yeah.
But
no, it gets you makes you feel that sense of paranoia. Yeah. It makes you feel that doubt. And I think you bring up a great point that we don't know what is going on just as much as the characters don't know what's going on. Even from the title, it's just The Thing. There's this sense of ambiguity. You don't really know what's going on. You don't know what this is. And you never get to see, like, the final form or the final look of whatever this creature is. You never see what it actually looks like. You only see it take on different forms or into this just giant mass of whatever. So there's that sense of ambiguity and that sense of mysteriousness. And by the end, we still don't know what it is.
We don't. Yeah, we have no idea because they don't even give it a name. They just call it an imitation, which is, I mean, that's exactly what it is. But yeah, unlike something with Alien, whereas they kept adding lore, not very successfully, mind you. But yeah, we have no idea what it is. Not even with the prequel that was released a couple years ago.
Yeah,
it still didn't provide any clue as to what exactly it was, and I think at least that part of that film was done very well.
Yeah, I never saw that. What was it? 2011.
2011. Yeah.
I mean, it was okay. That's all I really have to say.
It was okay.
I like the lead actress, Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I love her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's definitely a celeb crush for me, so I'm just gonna like it by default. But going back to the whole creature being called the Thing, I'm gonna kind of derail this by saying this is also a good example of a not cheesy 80s movie because they don't go, it's the Thing. Like they don't like
they very much could
they
have
don't
done
give
that.
it a name. They like just use it in context because they just don't know what it is. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that thing is, like I thought that was interesting, like watching it again. Like I was expecting like something like that for some reason. But
I feel like it's a very John Carpenter thing to like not include something like that because he's very much not a like cheesy B-movie director.
Yeah. Because like not naming what something is just adds to that paranoia.
Absolutely,
and it's the it's like the ultimate witch hunt because you don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think John Carpenter, going with what you're saying, it's not a B movie. I think he's a director who takes what in other people's hands would be B movies, but makes them A movies. He's an A level director making B movies, and I think that's part of what makes him such a good director. Like The Thing, Halloween, Escape from New York, all these movies I feel like could be B movies, but he gives them sort of an A level status.
Well, the Thing was originally a B movie. For anyone who doesn't know, it was a remake of a 1950s movie called The Thing from Another World. I've never seen it, but just from that title and the fact that it was released in the 50s, I'm sure it is very cheesy.
Yeah. And I did definitely taking something from that era where you have the B movie, which is definitely very cheesy. They do a fantastic... And again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know how well they adapted it. But taking those ideas that I'm assuming are in that movie and translating them for a 1982 audience and then thus a 2018 audience, they do such a good job in having these timeless qualities to it. These practical effects that stand the test of time. The paranoia, the overall atmosphere and the feeling of it all. That sense that you get, you don't know what's going on right along with the characters. It really, the execution of this film, I think, is really good.
I'm just curious, because I still don't know why... Alright, this part of the movie confused me. So, who burnt up MacReady's jacket? Where the hell did that come from? I'm still confused. Like, when they found MacReady's jacket all burnt up, and they're like, he's one of them. It's like, he wasn't, though.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where did that come from?
Well, I feel like that's a very clear example of someone trying to frame him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember who was infected at that time during the movie. It may have been Norris.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was definitely that stoner guy. I think he was still alive. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically who it was, but I do think it was this case of deflection on the creature's part.
Yeah. And then this brings up another thing that people are still unsure of today, even. Who got to the blood?
Oh, yeah.
That is never explained in the movie whatsoever.
That's right.
That's great. That's not explained.
I don't even think people
adds to it.
Yeah, I don't even think people have even asked John Carpenter about it either, which is surprising to me. I feel like they would, but I personally have no idea who did it because every time I watch this movie, it's weird. I'm still, even though I've seen it so many times, I'm still just as lost as everyone in the movie.
Exactly.
It's very weird.
Same. Now that I think about it, I still don't know either.
Yeah.
I feel like thinking about how the creature kind of took over, how it was like cellular and not like a virus. Or, I mean, it was a virus, technically. But the fact that it was so like small scale and the fact that pretty much everything acted fine. You know what I mean? Like, the dog acted fine. Yeah. People who were infected were fine up until, like, something triggered them. And then they just started morphing. Yeah. I don't even know what word to use for that. But I feel like it's, like, it's like a time bomb in a sense, and I feel like because it's so small scale, it could manipulate how they think and act. Like Blair, for example, like clearly it manipulated him to start building the aircraft. Like somehow the cells just knew. So I feel like, I don't know, they just like took over someone for a second and they blinked out on like draining all the blood. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So you brought up Blair, and this I'm a little fuzzy on this. Was Blair an imitation like from the start when he was freaking out?
I feel like when he started getting paranoid and started realizing what it was, I feel like when they explained the whole cellular thing, I think he knew that he was infected because he was literally the closest person to this the entire time, and he exposed himself the most to this creature. So I feel like he knew like, oh, I'm done for, you know? And like him acting out and lashing out, saying like, no one can leave, that's like a combination, or no, it's not a combination of anything. It's the creature taking over Blair's paranoia and using it to their advantage. So that way, like, nobody can leave, like, I have more hosts to collect, you know?
There's also a thing where, like, if it's a perfect imitation, like, perfect, I'm talking, it might think it's actually human, too.
Yeah.
There's that little... I don't know if that's the intention Carpenter had with this, but it's definitely a possibility, I feel.
And that kind of takes us into a part of the film that I really want to talk about because it's one of my favorite parts, which is the whole scene where they're testing the blood. To set the stage for people listening, this is the part of the movie where they are all cutting their thumbs and testing the blood because there was some audible
I can handle like fake like guts going everywhere, but oh my god, little scalpel in the thumb.
I was thinking that I was thinking about saying it out loud, but I was like, no, we're in the middle of the movie. Yeah. But I was thinking it's funny that we have scenes where people and dogs are exploding and morphing and blood and guts everywhere. But cutting a thumb is what gets everyone to go, oh.
I think it's because that's real, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was actually looking...
And it bothers me, too.
Yeah.
I was the only one who was fine with it. Like, that was one of my favorite parts.
I was fine with it, too, yeah.
Like, call me a sadist.
It's so big. That's like his whole thumb. He can't use his thumb for like a week now.
Yeah.
And one of them was like cutting underneath, like,
that part got to me.
That part got to me. Just a little nick on, like, the side of the thumb.
Yeah, that's
Don't
fine.
cut underneath
your
nail.
No.
But
I was not bothered by that scene. It was one of my favorites. Like, call me a sadist or something.
But that whole sequence is because it's so intense. Because you're just waiting to figure out who it is that's actually the thing. And I think one of the most telling parts of that scene, and I picked it up on this time, was I don't remember which character it was, but one of the characters was watching as they were testing his blood, and he was looking, and then they tested, and nothing happened with the blood, and he was like, oh.
I think that was Palmer.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was Windows.
But that was interesting to me that he didn't even know if he was one of the things.
Exactly.
He didn't even know, and so at that point, who does know? And how is there any way to trust someone if they don't even know if they're infected or not?
Dude, that blood scene always gets me because, like, I've only seen it like 3 times, and like I know what happens when they test like the monster's blood. But, like, I never expect it. And I'm always like, oh, fuck. Like,
And watching it, if you watch it the first time, like, it's such a reaction. Because I remember the first time I watched it, they tested the blood, the first one, and it started to smoke. Yeah. And I was like, oh, is that, like, the reaction? Like, the blood's smoking? And I was like, okay, no, that's just, like, a regular thing. And I kept waiting, and it keeps going on and on. It's like 4 or 5 of them.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, what's the thing like what's gonna happen? And then it happens. It just explodes and it turns into this crazy sequence.
It's just like the ultimate tension scene that I feel like a lot of people would like benefit from watching if they make it, because it's so good. Like you build up that tension and then that fear because you don't know if it's you or not, and then it just happens. It
has a very like Salem witch trials-esque influence where you don't know who's innocent, you don't know who's guilty. Even the people involved don't know if they themselves are infected by the thing or not. And it adds to that level of paranoia, and it adds to the confusion that is so prevalent throughout the whole film. And I think this one scene really encapsulates that feeling.
Yeah, that's why, like, before, like I mentioned, it was my favorite because it's, like, the ultimate witch hunt. Like, the ultimate witch hunt movie that, like, portrays the witch hunt, like, thing really well because you just get that paranoia portrayed really good.
I'm a fan of whoever did all the computer animations or built the computers in the movie. Like, the chess computer's cool. I don't know if that was an actual thing, but that's cool. The animation showing the cells, like, obviously that's not microscopic, that's not real, that's pixel art.
Yeah.
This looks like a video game, you know? I thought that was super cool, and I like wonder how they made that.
It could have just been an animation. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
And I think I was going through some facts about the movie, like right before I came here. Apparently, it was the same guy who did the intro to Escape from New York.
Oh, sweet.
I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
But
I actually haven't, but I would like to see it soon because a lot of
I've got a
people
copy of it with me here.
Oh wow.
But I have this question that I wanted to pose to you guys. So I was talking to Connor Murphy after we watched the film, and he was on our La La Land discussion last week for people listening. So I was talking to Connor, and he said he was kind of mixed on the movie, and one of the reasons why he said he was mixed was that he thought there was too much gore, and that it kind of detracted from the film, and that it detracted from the sense of paranoia that we've been talking about. So I wanted to pose to you guys, do you think that's, I don't want to say valid because everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but would you, can you see that point of view that, oh, maybe the gore kind of detracts from the actual story, or for you, because me personally, I think the gore helps make the movie. I think that adds to it.
For a first viewing, like for anyone who hasn't seen the film and this is their first time, yeah, that totally added to it for me because I was like, this is just crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is all over the place. But watching it now, I'm like, it kind of is gory. And if you, like, you know, just accounting the practical effects, the sound effects, like, it's pretty gory. But I don't think it detracts from the film, but I feel like the weight of, like, the gore, like, your reaction to the gore isn't as, like, engaging. Like, I'm not as engaged when it's super gory versus when everyone's paranoid and, like, turning on each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I kind of get that feeling, too, that it is, like, it is gory based, and I feel like the kind of, like, the speed of the gore kind of, like, takes away from most of the parts, versus, like Nick said, like, the paranoia and everything. Yeah.
And I did notice this time when I was watching it that there's this whole section in the middle where there's, like, no gore, the creature doesn't surface. You have the initial thing with the dog, and then you have a whole section, I don't even know how long, but it had to have been probably about a half an hour of just focusing on the characters.
Right.
Before you get to the scene, I think, it was when they were trying to revive the guy, and then the stomach opened up and cut off his hands, which that's a crazy scene. I love that scene.
Yeah.
When I think of this movie, I think of that scene, and I think of that spider creature with, like, his face.
Oh yeah.
That's what I think of when I think of this movie.
Yeah, I think the first time watching this, like, that guy's head, like, just, like, his neck stretching out and then tearing apart from his head. I think that's, like, whenever I think of the thing, I think of that.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, oh, this is so gross.
Right.
You know what's weird, though? Now that I think of it, I haven't seen the remake in a while, or the prequel, in a while, but I feel like a similar thing happens in that as well. And
I'm sure
I
it
think
does,
of that movie, I think of that in another scene.
What's the story of the prequel? I haven't seen
so
it.
So
Does
the
it
whole, like, thing in the beginning, like, where Kurt and the Doc go to inspect where it came from and they find the big thing of ice, it's pretty much the story of the people finding the ice.
Yeah, and then it
cool.
leads right into the intro scene for this movie where the Norwegians, or the Norwegians are chasing the dog in the helicopter.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And was it good?
No.
I mean, I'm
or just not as good compared to this, or it just wasn't a good
I haven't
willing
seen
to
it since it was in
rewatch it.
theaters, so I wouldn't know.
All right.
It was
I'm curious to see it.
I remember the CGI being awful, though.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this last night. They made, like, really nice looking practical effects for that movie, and then they just didn't end up using them. I don't know why. Like, you've already made them. what are you gonna do with them?
Yeah.
But they decided it was too expensive, maybe.
Yeah.
Even though they already made them.
Yeah, maybe it might have been that they had to cut some scenes out for time, and if you cut out some scenes, you have to cut out others, and then before you know it, you're cutting out all these great scenes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to talk about this film in context of horror movies, because this month is all horror movies, and this isn't a straight horror movie. This isn't exactly when you think of horror. This isn't like I guess it has supernatural elements, but it's science fiction, it's thriller, it has all these other elements to it. And so I'm curious to discuss, like, what makes it a horror movie, what makes it, when we talk about horror movies, The Thing is a movie that comes up a lot, and for a film that has so many other elements to it, and it's not such a pure horror movie, I'm curious as to why it's stuck with people as being a quintessential horror film.
I would say definitely the effects, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I had to turn the movie off when I first saw it, because I was just like, this is too disturbing.
It's unnerving.
It is. It's very unnerving. That's actually like how I kind of judge horror movies. If it legitimately makes me uncomfortable and unnerves me, I know it's good. Very few movies have done that for me. But, yeah, like the scene with the dog, the scene where Norris transforms, it's just, they're so shocking and grotesque. I think that's why it's sort of labeled as a horror movie, because really through the rest of the film it's very much a thriller up until the creature reveals itself. Then it goes full horror.
But it's pretty suspenseful.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like it's definitely more suspenseful than horror, but what makes it more of a horror is the fact that everyone's like, you don't know what the creature is. The mystery, I feel like that aspect of, like, mystery definitely adds to it. And, like, the gore is just like, surprise! Here's a ton of guts everywhere. Like, it is unnerving for some people. Like, I've seen enough late-night television where gore is, like, nothing to me. Like, try watching Super Jail. Like, try watching an episode of Super Jail. But, yeah, I feel like, to me now, the gore is, like, nothing, but to, like, someone else, it definitely would freak them out. I feel like. So that I feel like the gore makes it a horror film. Because, like, without these grotesque effects, it would not have the same effect, I feel like.
And I think the gore has the impact that it does have because we don't know what's going on. And we're so confused as to what is going on. We don't know what the thing is. And the characters don't know what's going on, that gore has an impact on us because, as I mentioned before, there's the whole section in, like, the middle of the movie where there's no creature, no effects, it's just character-based. And then all of a sudden, it comes right out of nowhere, and it's all this craziness and all this gore at once. And it's shocking, and it's meant to be that way. And I think it has that level of impact because of how great the practical effects are, but what it means for the characters. And I think this movie succeeds with its characters, and even though I can't really, off the top of my head, name the characters, we don't know anything about them, but I still feel for them, and you get behind them and you understand what is going on. And I think that's interesting because there's a lot of movies like this where you have like an ensemble like this, where you don't know much about them as characters, you don't know much about their backgrounds, but and because of that, you can't really get into them as characters. You don't feel for them. They're just kind of nameless faces for whatever the creature is to pick off one by one. Sure. But here you get behind the characters. And I think that's a testament to the filmmaking in that you can root for these characters and you can get behind them without knowing anything really about them.
Yeah, now that you mention that, what are they doing studying in Antarctica? What are they looking for? Why are they down there? Why is there Norwegians down there? It's cold.
It's cold in Norway. They don't need to be here.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's true. Because I was, like, now that you mention that, it makes me think, like, wow. You know, like, that's true. It's just sad, you know, how movies set people up and it's like, oh, wow, I'm getting to know this character. Oh, they're dead. Nothing matters. I'm sad. Yeah.
And I think the whole beginning part with the team together and the camaraderie, I think that kind of, you have a lot of, like, good one-liners and you have a lot of good riffing on each other. and that kind of gives them personality. And sometimes a technique of filmmakers is to just give characters like one quirk or something. Something that will stand out about them, and then that comes to only define their character. This movie doesn't do that, but it definitely gives the characters a sense of familiarity with each other, and you feel like that they've been there for a while and that they are acquainted with each other, and that there's this friendship and this camaraderie between them all, even if there's some tension between some of them, because you definitely have the moments where you can see there's friction between them, and then that's heightened by this terror of what's going on.
Yeah, because like you see that like one moment of friendship in that like one scene, and it's like, oh, they're just nice people, like sort of nice people, and you kind of like feel for that, and then you're like, and then the paranoia sets in, rips each other apart, and then it's like, oh wait, they're friends, but yeah.
And it adds to that paranoia.
Yeah.
Because now you have all these people that you saw were friendly with each other, and we don't know how long they've been there, but they've been there enough that they're very close, like they're acquainted with each other. They're friendly with each other at the very least. And now they're turning on each other and murdering each other. You have that scene where Kurt Russell just accidentally shoots someone in the head.
Yeah.
And then they find out he wasn't even the thing. And
he was trying to kill him, though.
That is true.
That,
he had the scalpel where he was ready to stab him.
The thing knew that Kurt Russell was a threat to the alien race. They were like, no, we gotta sabotage him, get this guy to try to kill him.
One of the things, like going off, them being friends, right after Bennings transforms, and like he's almost done, he's just got the hands, and they burn him in the snow. They go back inside, and Gary, he goes up to McCready and he's like, I've known Bennings for 10 years. He's my friend. Yeah. And like that, like I think it's the performance of the actor. I don't know the actor's name off the top of my head. I think that's what makes it, because there's a lot of emotion just in that delivery of that one line.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, just makes it.
Yeah.
And it adds a sense of history to these characters, because we don't know too much about them. We don't know their histories. We don't know specifically their pasts. But it's little moments like that give this sense of history behind them, that gives kind of like a window into what has come before, and that makes it so much richer when you know that there are these deep friendships, 10-year-long friendships between characters, and now they're being torn apart and forced to go head to head. It makes that kind of conflict so much more richer.
Right.
Yeah, when I heard that line, I definitely felt pretty bad for them, like given their emotional reaction to everything going on. I was like, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, the script overall is like phenomenal. Like the ending too, because like as a student, the filmmaker, I've just seen so many scripts where it's so similar to the ending. Not like, oh, let's just sit here and watch it burn. I'm talking two characters who haven't been super friendly with each other and like trying to have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I always see like the, hey, like, what's up? Like, thrown at any scenario. And I feel like it was really good for this ending. And honestly, watching this ending with those two characters makes me think, like, I wonder if, like, in earlier drafts, like, they had more one-on-ones throughout. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, man, I feel like this is something I bet the writer would want in the film, but, like, didn't think, like, obviously it's an early draft, so he wouldn't know where the story would turn, but he found its place for this type of interaction, and I felt like that ending was actually pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Looking back at it.
I'm glad you brought up the ending, because you can't really talk about the thing without talking about the ending, because it's so ambiguous. Because you're not sure if either of them are imitations. You're not sure if anyone is an imitation at all. They could just be normal humans at this point. You don't know.
Yeah.
There is a theory that I've seen online a couple times where I always watch out for the scene in the movie, but I always miss it somehow. I guess McCready's like making Molotov cocktails at some point, and then at the end when Childs shows up, he hands him the bottle, and that's a Molotov cocktail, and Childs drinks it, but because it's a Molotov, if it's an imitation, he wouldn't know what it tastes like, so he just drinks it as is, and the thing that brings that to light is when he, as soon as he touched the bottle of his lips, it plays the theme, I guess, and dun dun, dun, and then like McCready kind of chuckles because he knows Childs is an imitation.
Yeah,
and that's when the movie ends.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't remember him making a Molotov.
Neither do I. That's the only thing. Like I always seem to miss that scene if it's even in there.
I also remember the bottle being green. You know what I mean? And he was drinking out of the.
Yeah.
Was that Jim Beam? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, he was drinking out of the same bottle, so I was under the impression that he was drinking out of that bottle, but that's actually that's a really good theory.
Yeah, that is, and that throws a whole
exactly.
That makes me think completely.
I know.
That gives me an excuse to watch the movie again.
I know.
Yeah.
Let's watch it. Put it on right now.
Right now.
Yes.
You know, I love open-ended movies because they just add that, like, they bring up such great theories that you would never think about.
And it's an open end, and it lends itself to the movie because there's so much open-endedness in the film. You know, as like we were talking about before, the ambiguity surrounding even the creature, which is the focus of the movie, and so it's fitting for an open-ending, ambiguous ending to the film.
That's what really makes it good too. Because earlier, my girlfriend wanted to join us for this, but she didn't. And when she was talking about it earlier, she was like, "I know it's good, but I don't know why." After talking about this, though, it's honestly a combination of everything. Like, mostly the ambiguity, because you're on the edge of your seat the entire time, even at the ending. You don't know what happens. And we're still questioning parts about the movie that still haven't been answered 40 whatever years later. You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And with everything being as structured as it is, like, there's no wonder it's a good film. You know?
Yeah.
I'm thinking now to, like, all the nighttime, like, exterior shots when they're outside the base. And, like, filming at night, like, on film specifically, it's hard. And the lighting is so nice at night because, like, everything's cold, so they just use a big bright blue light, and that's it. That's super simple. It totally sets the mood, and like whenever they have the red flare flashing and it's like red and blue, it looks so cool. It's so nice. And
the fire.
And the fire too.
Yeah. Fire is really good.
It's so, like, I don't know, just thinking about it now, it's like it just works.
I will say one other thing that makes this movie for me. Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell.
That's
Kurt Russell's a blessing.
That's my final thought on that.
Yeah.
Fuck you too. Great one-liner.
Yeah, I feel like this movie should be like shown a lot more with by like film professors because it's such a great movie to show like, hey, sometimes feature films don't always work, but this works and it stands the test of time.
You just want an excuse to watch it in class, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I feel like the sound effects too. Like I would argue, the sound effects in that film could go in sound design. You know?
Exactly.
Like that. Don't even know how to describe it. The cry that Bennings has.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
It had a very Invasion of the Body Snatchers sound to it. The score. The score for this movie is interesting because usually with John Carpenter movies, they have very, in a good way, in-your-face scores. Like, the score is very prevalent. It's very in the front. It's out there. But with this, it has a very subdued score. And I thought that was interesting because I think it added to it. It had very small musical notes, and it was very much in the background as opposed to other Carpenter films.
Yeah, for sure. I think being the movie that it is, it needed a more subdued score rather than something like big,
Yeah. It doesn't have any big themes.
Yeah.
Like, it has its theme, but it doesn't have a big Halloween theme.
Exactly.
To it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, as we wrap up here, we'll just go into quick final thoughts on the film. Going first, I love this movie. I've seen it a couple of times now, and I just really enjoy this movie so much. As we've been talking about, and as I said, I think at the very beginning, single greatest use of practical effects I think I've ever seen in a movie. And my philosophy is always practical effects will outlast and be better than CGI most of the time. Other cases, like the new Planet of the Apes movies, if they had Andy Serkis in an ape costume, I don't think that movie would be nearly as effective. But the practical effects, I'm always stunned by the practical effects in this film. I love the sense of paranoia, and the camaraderie of the characters in the beginning adds to that sense of paranoia throughout. It's a great atmosphere movie. It establishes and sets in that atmosphere through the entire film. And I'm always blown away by this movie. John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. I love the work that he does. I think he turns out really quality films. And so The Thing always impresses me every time.
It's still one of my favorite horror movies. I would even go so far as to say it's one of my favorite movies, period. Just because it's the paranoia that does it for me. You know, a lot of horror movies are like, boo, I gotcha. But this is just, it's all very much suspenseful, and I love that about horror films in general.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's stood the test of time for over almost 40 years now, it's ridiculous.
See, that's something that not a lot of modern-day horror filmmakers seem to understand, is establishing that sense of atmosphere. Because it seems like they're all about the jump scare and about throwing everything in your face, and you have to, and there's very few modern-day horror movies that understand establishing the atmosphere and having this terror and this increasing and impending doom through the atmosphere, that you just feel it in the air, as opposed to just like, hey, something pops up on screen, it scares you for 1 second. The atmosphere is more about the long term, and that's something that The Thing definitely does very well.
Honestly, this film for me, like, it's definitely one of my favorites now, rewatching it, and like just like having these like feelings watching the characters, you know, like figure things out and like observing like the environment and everything. I feel like this definitely stands the test of time, and I feel like this is a movie I would show my kid when he's old enough. And like, this is definitely one of those movies I would show my friends who has never seen it before. And I feel like, I don't know, talking about it now and like kind of like thinking about everything, like that theory about the ending definitely has me thinking. I don't know, it makes me want to watch it again. That's what makes it good.
Yeah, that's the best of movies. You know, make us think about the film after.
Yeah.
Makes us want to watch it again. Yeah, that's definitely one of the great things that The Thing has going for it. So this has been our discussion of John Carpenter's The Thing. This is the first installment in our October series, which is all horror movies. And to give you a little tease of what's coming up next week, we have Ridley Scott's Alien. And that's going to be a good discussion. I'm very excited to talk about, because that's also one of my favorite movies.
Right,
love Alien. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about that movie. Once again, I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár, and I'd like to thank my panel, Crystal Gonzalez. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll be seeing you again.
Yes, Dave Scrivani.
I'll be here all month.
And Nick Girard.
Thank you for having me and letting me bring my projector.
Well, thank you for bringing the projector, and
Of
thank
course.
you for being here.
True cinema experience.
So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and be sure to follow us on our various social medias at MovieParadise99, and check in next week for our discussion of Alien. Thanks, everyone.